We're back here with our no ban list modern semifinals. We've seen Braun-Duin dispatch Annalise Faustino in 3 games in the top 8. He's now going to face the other archetype that made it into our no ban list top 8. It is Black-Green Depths, piloted by the overall 1 seed Chris Lynch. We start with Expedition map off Blooming Marsh. This is just a pretty fast combo deck.
Yes, and miss on BBD for a mental misstep on that map.
Yeah, and unlike Legacy Turbo Depths, there's just no wasteland in this format. So if Chris has one of the 2 land combo pieces, now that the map's resolved, he doesn't have to cast another spell this game.
BBD is packing 2 Field of Ruin.
Okay.
You can play a little bit against lands.
And I guess he is a Path to Exile deck, so he can answer 2020.
Yep. Though there's only a few cards few and far between. Cards like this, a banned card, Ponder, makes it a lot easier to find them, but you do need to find them.
And I do like the simplicity also. You know, Chris plays 4 Mental Misstep. He doesn't have to misstep this Ponder because he's going to make a 2020. Then he's going to misstep all those Path to Exiles, then he's going to win.
Right. You're largely going to save missteps for specifically Path to Exile. And if you have 2, you might even save 1 for their misstep if they're able to pick 1 up. BBD is going to shuffle this Ponder pretty quickly. And there's pretty specific things that you're looking for in this matchup. In general, I think you should be shuffling pretty aggressively.
Minute 12 in, the Eldrazi mirror already in game 2. Aiden Breyer up a game because if he never played during Eldrazi Winter, that's about how that format works.
Doesn't take long.
One person makes the stuff first.
Yep.
Dark Depths found off the Expedition.
Possible we could see Hexmage plus Dark Depths on the following turn. You do need to be mindful of Spell Snare. BBD packing 2 copies of those. It's good in this format. Counters Chalice of the Void.
You missed up the 1s and Spell Snare the 2s.
Yeah. All the way up to curve to 2, where things stop until we get to 8.
or if they're just playing colorless Eldrazi and they have 4s and 3s and 5s that are actually just 2s in disguise because they only tap 2 lands for them.
Yeah, not being able to Spell Snare those is pretty egregious.
And there's the Dark Depths, and as you mentioned, here's the Vampire Hexmage. Did we get a Spell Snare? Let's check it out.
Fetch and Response certainly feels like a Spell Snare.
There you go.
I
bet you are thrilled right now.
I love Spell Snare.
Even no matter how many cards we unban, Spell Snare is still too good for Modern.
The more cards you unban, the better it actually
gets. Everything makes it better.
This card gets worse when decks like Todd Stevens Collected Company get better because they have a bunch of 3-mana creatures. But the more broken things are, the more you're forced to play 2-mana spells. You can't play Courser of Krufix in no ban list Modern.
I mean, it would be, a Todd Stevens Company deck would be pretty good against what Brian's doing here. Okay, if Chris just next turn started making Tireless Trackers and Coursers and Knight of the Reliquaries, I'm not sure that Brian's going to beat it.
Yeah, Tireless Tracker would be pretty nice against Brian's deck.
Some Voice of Resurgences.
Yeah, I'm less into that one. That one you can Spell Snare. So
that one you can Spell Snare.
That's a non-starter.
Okay. Activate some Gavany Townships. Just maybe a treetop village in there or something.
Ugh.
All these threats.
I'm so disgusted by this notion.
You're like, that's the most broken thing you came up with. Some value 3s. Like, yeah, those value 3s nice. You could death right into them.
It is true. That card is pretty messed up.
No copies of it in our top 8, but you're right.
It doesn't line up super well against Eldrazi.
Sensei's Divine Top from Brian. Do you think, Ryan, it's strange that Deathrite Shaman, a lot of people calling for it to be banned in Legacy, however, not even cracking the top 8 in no banless Modern?
The formats are very different. You don't get to play Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time in Legacy. You don't get to play Mental Misstep in Legacy.
I guess in a lot of ways, these decks might be stronger than Legacy decks.
Yes. There are a number of cards legal in this format that you cannot and will never be able to touch again in Legacy.
Yeah, I was taking for granted that Legacy would be more powerful than this, but that is not clear.
Right.
Here's Thoughtseize from Chris. Brian going to spin top in response. We see Mental Misstep, Counterbalance, and a third one. Well, he can misstep it now if he wants, and I think he will. Mm-hmm. Yeah, top spins him into Mental Misstep. What do you think he's protecting so much that this is worth it?
I mean, you're protecting information, which certainly matters. If you have a Path to Exile you're hanging on to, you would want to defend that.
Mental Misstep. What a joyful card.
Yeah, everybody loves it. So fun.
Brian's tapped down. We might see another Hexmage. Let's see.
Sylvan Scrying.
Sylvan Scrying. So now we're going to get the uncounterable way to make Merit Lage. We'll just go get lands.
Yeah, presumably, we're finding Thespian Stage.
I think so.
Everything else here, taps for mana, very little in the way of utility lands. There is a Sagiri Step. This is a second Dark Depths, though. Must already have access to Stage.
Or he's planning to spend that mana to thaw out Merit Lage, one of the two.
And then have the second one as a backup 30 mana later. He's playing the long game.
You know, when there's no wasteland, this is a real good combo when your 2 lands just make a 20-20.
This is a real good combo when there is Wasteland.
Jace the Mind Sculptor from Brian, tapping out for it. Saw that card winning his top 8 match. Of course, tapping a fetch land thanks to Urborg. Jace brainstorms into Counterbalance, Scalding Tarn, Supreme Verdict. Supreme Verdict hits nothing here because it hits Vampire Hexmage.
Vampire Hexmage is a removal spell for Jace the Mind Sculptor.
It's not even particularly good with Counterbalance, as Chris plays no cards that cost more than 2 mana. Back to Lynch, makes Thespian Stage. 5 mana up, says go. Pressure's on Brian. Definitely
Can't make the Merit Lage during your own turn. Jace the Mind Sculptor would make you pick that up.
Well,
BBD also backing some Detention Spheres.
What I like, Brian, is that if Braun-Duin has a Path to Exile and a Counterbalance and can leave a 1 on top of his deck, he should be able to path the Merit Lage, and Chris can't misstep fight over it because all the missteps would get countered by Counterbalance.
Yeah. Yeah, the longer this goes, things tend to favor BBD. A big part of that, it's not just that he has the lock set up, but he's also the deck that's casting Sensei's Divining Top, Ponder, Preordain. He's very effective at sculpting his draws. You see the active Jace the Mind Sculptor here.
Yeah, it's interesting how much this format resembles Legacy.
Yeah.
Just looking at our top 8, you know, we have our Ancient Tomb decks, our Turbo Depths, and our Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think these are actually the best decks in No Banless Modern, or it's because people had a blueprint to work off of, these are the best Week 1 decks?
I think it's going to be more of the second, though it does not rule out the first.
Yeah, like there might be some archetype we never found because this is only one tournament that's actually good, but you know that months down the road in this alternate reality, No Banless Modern would have started to change.
Right, yeah. I'd be surprised if you could make Colorless Eldrazi be particularly bad in this format.
Yeah.
Though I could be convinced that there are decks that could take up a larger share of the metagame.
All right, here's Merit Lage. Chris goes for it on Brian's end step. There's going to be a fight, Path to Exile. And that just works.
And not much
no
of a
missteps.
Fight. And you saw the way that the attrition match has been fought here. Lynch tried to go for a Thoughtseize earlier, got hit by a mental misstep. You know, BB just ahead on that interaction. Meanwhile, what Chris's deck is doing is trying to set up 2-card combos in a number of ways. And when Brian breaks them up, it only cost him 1 card.
Yeah. And this is actually interesting. Jace the Mind Sculptor has largely been a flop in Modern, but in No Banless Modern, it looks every bit as good as it does in Legacy.
Mental Misstep makes Jace the Mind Sculptor a lot better.
You just can keep the board cleaner before you cast it.
Right. A lot of the problem with Jace the Mind Sculptor is if your opponent's on the battlefield before you cast it, you can do what? Unsummon something, and then when you're unsummoning it, it usually means you're behind in a very meaningful way. When you're just able to brainstorm, and part of the reason you're just able to do that is there's fewer creatures played in this format in general, and the card's just a lot more powerful. It does not line up great against the Eldrazi decks. If you're able to keep the battlefield clear, deal with everything that they deploy on the early turns, then Jace will pull you ahead.
Fetch and then a Brainstorm from Brian. He's got Counterbalance in hand. We'll see when he chooses to set up with it. Now, for real counter spells, it's funny, we've been watching so much Modern this weekend, I'm thinking, okay, he can go Counterbalance and leave up Cryptic Command. How does he actually have hard counters here?
Not really. I mean, there's 2 mana leaks, which they're good on the early turns. I like that they're included in the deck. They line up against a lot of things you could potentially see in this format, and they're fine in this matchup.
Counterbalance with 4 up for Brian. Now, actually, you talked about the 4 paths that deal with Merit Lage. Brian has a 5th removal spell for path. It's a one of Repeal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Repeal is quite powerful.
Abrupt Decay hits the counterbalance off the board. Brian, however, does still have the top and the Jace, so things are still well under control.
Chris is playing 4 copies of Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, passes. And we'll remember also, in Miracles, you can close much more quickly than you might think because this is a nice card that's illegal, and we think we're going to see Brian cast it. It's Dig Through Time.
And then the Dig Through Time just sets you up for wherever you're going to win with. Monastery Mentor plus Sensei's Divining Top.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah, it's a combination where you just make a bunch of monks really quickly, and it doesn't ever take too many turns to close from there.
In this matchup, you could almost win by just plussing Jace.
Yeah, and from this point, I assume you could relatively easily. If you're at fewer than 7 cards in hand, it's usually very safe and often just correct to brainstorm anyway.
Okay. Yeah, it's wins quicker.
Right, but once you've fought through a combo, as Brian has, and if you've played several turns where Chris has not been able to attempt again, just Fate Sealing will probably close the game.
A brainstorm from Jace. Brian has picked up one of his 2 copies of Monastery Mentor. Look at that, 9 cards in hand before he puts back.
Now the real
This looks
treat
good.
is when you get 2 Sensei's Divining Tops. Then for
Boom,
every 1
boom,
mana,
boom, boom.
you make a monk.
And you pump the rest of your team. It's just, it's a very quick turnaround.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
See, then you got to play your Ethereum Sculptor. And then you make all the monks. It's not good enough to just make 4. You got to make 4 million. Monastery Mentor. This is the win condition of Brian's deck. 2 more mana. He'll cast Counterbalance and make a monk.
I'm so used to seeing Young Pyromancer, it always slips my mind that Mentor just works with any non-creature spell.
Yeah, it feels like, hey, wait, you see Counterbalance and then top, and you think, wait a second, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, enchantments shouldn't do anything here.
I like this from Chris. He's like, oh, you got these 2 Divining Tops and a Monastery Mentor. Hold on, let me remove an ice counter.
Yeah, time to thaw up the Merit Lage.
Yeah, no, I got this. This is under control. 27 more mana, and I'm going to attempt a 2020.
So, untapping with Mentor 2 monks, I don't know that Chris gets another turn.
1 mana pumps 3 times. So there's 4 damage right now. Brian would have to cast 6 Sensei's Divining Tops to make this lethal. He has 7 lands before his land drop in play, so he could go for it. The question, I'm not sure he will because I don't know if he needs to. He can walk this in, but you're right.
I would expect if Chris had an Abrupt Decay, it would already have been fired off on something here, and you start spinning the tops.
How many? 1. He's just keeping him down there to count. 2. Let's keep exchanging the tops. Tap. Draw. Cast. 3. Reload the cannon. Shooting again. Number 4. 4 monks, 4 pumps.
This is Ironworks all over again.
You just get this Ironworks only makes Sensei's Divining Tops. Draw it. 6. So they've pumped for 18. This is 22. This is enough. We could do 2 more for good measure. Oh, let's keep going. We're making a point. And Chris Lynch picks up the cards.
I like that he waited until Brian stopped casting the tops.
Maybe he wouldn't see it. Brian Braun-Duin takes game 1 over Chris Lynch. Waiting in the finals, the number 6 seed has a win, 2-0. It is Aiden Breyer playing Cullis Eldrazi. And he will be the next opponent.
Successfully defeating Colorless Eldrazi.
All right, we're going to take a look at their sideboards in just a minute. game 2 underway. Chris Lynch and Braun-Duin. So let's look at some sideboards on black-green depth side. I mean, this is just, I love talking about sideboards in a format that no one's ever played before because we're just going to see a bunch of wild things. 3 gut shots, 2 damping spheres. Okay, 2 Not of This World. That's a 7-mana card that protects your Merit Lage. Make it a 0-mana card. 2 Pithing Needle, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Surgical Extraction, and 2 Bantu's Last Reckoning.
Neat.
So maybe they're playing some graveyard stuff, or some creatures, or some X1s, or some big mana, or some removal.
Yeah, the sideboard makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of high-impact cards here, and they address specific strategies. The gut shots are extremely good against things like Mono Blue Infect. Damping Sphere for Storm, obviously, and the stuff you have for matchups like this, the 2 Not of This World and the 2 Pithing Needle, they both seem to really play here. Not of This World, the block against Path to Exile, and Pithing Needle shuts off a number of things in Brian's decks. You can turn off the Sensei's Divining Tops, which is a pretty obnoxious card, also enables Counterbalance synergies, Mentor synergies, and Jace the Mind Sculptor serve to be pretty problematic in that game. You also have deckless face up. You know that Brian has 2 Field of Ruins. You can needle that one as well.
So Ryan, there's a Pithing Needle in Brian's sideboard, and if it names Thespian Stage or Vampire Hexmage, I don't know. Well, certainly on a sideboard if Chris has any way to deal with that.
In the main deck, there are 4 Abrupt Decay.
Okay.
So you can clean that up.
The rest of the cards in Brian's sideboard: Ceremonious Rejection, Celestial Purge, Disenchant, Surgical Extraction, Dispel, Gut Shot, Engine Explosives, Halo, Negate. I don't know about any of them.
Celestial Purge can exile Merit Lage. It's
It is
probably
black.
It makes
Yeah.
sense to reach for that one. I suppose that Dispel can fight over things like Not of This World and Mental Missteps blocking Path to Exile. That makes a decent amount of sense. And technically, this is a matchup where you can reach for Surgical Extraction. This is a combo that kind of goes multiple ways, but if you're able to extract Dark Depths, suddenly Chris really is not looking at meaningful ways to win the game. So the way game 1 played out, Brian disrupted Chris 1 time. There was never an opportunity to reset. And Brian has so much interaction that's likely going to be true. Unless you have something you really don't want in your main deck, I wouldn't really be reaching for the Surgicals.
Keep on 7 cards for both players. This time we'll get Chris Lynch on the play. Remember, the black-green depths is mostly a fair deck, an unfair deck. It's just trying to get assemble a win on turn 2 or 3, punch through a key piece of interaction, and he's going to lead off on a Pithing Needle. In Legacy, you'd name Wasteland here.
Right.
This is way more interesting.
I assume Sensei's Divining Top is what we're doing if we're jamming on turn 1.
He does name Sensei's Divining Top. I'd go for a fetch land. Let's get him good.
Hey, how many
Flooded Strand.
We have 4.
Flooded Strand.
We have 4 Tarns and 4 Strands.
Say Flooded Strand.
Sure.
Every once in a while, you're going to win. Brian, Island Ponder. My line's looking very much worse.
Yes.
If you had played the island, I'd have been like, how lucky.
Right. Unreal.
There is a Flooded Strand in Brian's hand.
Wow.
Yeah. Might even be 2.
Funny thing about that name in this matchup is that Chris is playing 4 Urborgs.
Oh, wait,
so
wait,
you
it's bad.
kind of end up not getting them at all. In game 1, Brian actually tapped Fetch Lands for mana several times through Chris's Urborg.
Well, if there's an Urborg in our opener, we'll have to go a different line. That's why the deck's so hard to play. You have to know all these steps.
There's a lot of subtleties.
When you should blind go for a fetch land. And
yeah, the deck doesn't reward you for making boneheaded plays that you should never make, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, that's a key element of decks that I need, you know. If my deck doesn't win games in spite of me, then it's going to be a long weekend.
Right. We all know who's doing the heavy lifting when I'm winning. It's the deck.
Chris Lynch going to crack a fetch land here on the second turn. I mean, that's basically what Primeval Titan is, right?
Yeah.
It's
got broad shoulders.
You can get make a lot of poor decisions with it, and if it doesn't die, you're fine.
Yeah. I could have got another Valakut trigger or 2, but
they didn't have the Terminate, so whatever.
Still got all these mountains.
Vampire Hexmage from Chris, turn 2. Sneaking it past that Spell Snare.
Nice.
4 p.m. Legacy Challenge players. Your next round pairings.
Dark Depths is in Chris's hand.
All right, just having it naturally is nice. There are a few ways to track it down in this deck. There's Expedition Map, 3 copies of that, and 4 Into the North. A veritable rampant growth that finds a snow land. Dark Depths is a snow land.
Chris does play one each of the snow-covered basics as well, in case in a pinch he needs to not get Dark Depths. But they'll usually just get Dark Depths.
Right. 4 Sylvan Scrying is as well. Plenty of ways to track it down.
For a second, I thought you meant scrying sheets, and I was going to get really excited, but Sylvan Scrying.
I wish there was a scrying sheets in this deck.
The have 6 targets.
The colorless source is probably pretty greedy, and you don't have very many lands to reveal, I suppose. Probably can't squeeze Cold Steelheart in here. Maybe a Mouth of Roanoke. Get Mouth of Roanoke on the screen.
That was the other good snow land.
Let's talk about Mouth of Roanoke for a second.
What else I can get in black-green?
Mouth of Roanoke can kill a Thought-Knot Seer.
Ronan Hulk. I liked that guy.
Celestial Purge going for the Vampire Hexmage. That's going to work. Can't Mental Misstep that.
Removes the counters from the basic island strong play on Chris's side. Pithing Needle, there's a Surgical Extraction in Brian's hand, and we wonder if he's going to try to extract the Hexmage right now.
Yeah, sacrificing the Hexmage is actually kind of weird.
Yeah,
the Purge exiles it.
Wait, if Brian Surgicals it right now, how much of a punish would that be?
I mean, you'd have to rely on depth.
He's going to go for it. Oh, what a punish. During Chris's draw step, Surgical, is there one in his hand? Doesn't matter, but still.
Doesn't look like it. And he does have depth stage set up here. Maybe Chris was trying to set this up, to be entirely honest. Make a joke play.
Yeah, that joke's on you.
I'm so silly. I'm going to sack my Hexmage. Hope you don't Surgical it, and then you just get him.
Get your eye on Surgical, your Hexmage. Oh. This is pretty nice. Nothing we could have done. That island needed to be taught a lesson, though.
It did. No way to get Hexmage out of the graveyard in the Dark Depths deck.
Still, Brian will have to be able to answer this Merit Lage. And I think because he's Celestial Purging the Hexmage, the read I would have on that from the black-green side is that he doesn't actually have a way to stop the other half of the combo. You know, if you're willing to burn up, like, for some reason he's not holding the Purge for Merit Lage.
I think you might have the opposite read, actually.
Okay.
Use that Purge straight away because you got some more.
Into the north and Thespian Stage for Lynch. So here's the combo. Next turn it'll be online.
I suppose if you don't fire it off there, no matter whether you have more traction or not, you set Chris up for a potential turn where he plays Dark Depths as his land, fires off a Thoughtseize, and now it's decision time for you, and you're kind of in trouble.
Jace, the Mind Sculptor, the draw for Brian. He has Pithing Needle in hand, however. Now that he knows that the Hexmages are gone and that the lands are the only way to set up the combo, he'll go Sensei's Divining Top, and I think we're going to see a Needle on that Thespian Stage. And that's what happens. Ryan, how does Chris make Merit Lage now?
Gotta find one of these 4 Abrupt Decays.
Or make 30 mana.
Yes. I named the thing that I thought could happen.
It's a good call.
But there is a different potential thing.
Now Chris draws, says go, and is Jace going to try to finish this? He won the last game for Brian.
It was a group effort. Brian chipped in.
Jace is a good teammate, and I think they're going for the Mind Sculptor. To get through this, if we don't find Abrupt Decay, does Chris's deck do anything?
No.
Okay. And now we have to find Abrupt Decay with Jace Fate Sealing every turn.
That makes it a lot harder, and the deck has many ways to tutor for lands. When it comes to Abrupt Decay, you just have to naturally draw it.
Sure. Brainstorm for Jace. Counterbalance, Path to Exile land. Fetch land at that. Flooded Strand. Second Flooded Strand. Could have needled it.
Yeah, and Chris hasn't played an Urborg, so.
Remember that Sensei's Divining Top in play for Brian is Pithing Needled. Chris, the thaw is going to start. 9 ice counters left for Merit I don't. He's ways away. Inquisition of Kozilek for Chris. He'll cast it, take a look at what's going on. Works for Brian. Counterbalance. Mental misstep. He'll just misstep the Inquisition.
Despite this not being a matchup where Chris is doing chip shots, Brian is at 9.
Where's all the damage coming from?
Mental misstep, fetch, shock. When he cast the Jace, there was untap Hollow Fountain to do it. Yeah, the surgical.
I guess Burn's not very good in this format.
Yeah. Being able to mental misstep Goblin Guide is a powerful exchange.
Also, I don't know if there's any card on the banned list that Burn would play.
Yeah, you don't get upgrades. Every other deck gets a lot better. Eldrazi is extremely good against Burn, too.
Yes.
Part of the fact that it's extremely good against everything, Burn happens to be
Burn is an
a
everything.
thing. Yeah.
Counterbalance for Brian. It's just a blind counterbalance at the moment with the top.
He just put 2 cards
Needles.
back. He knows what his top card is.
Well, the only card that matters for Chris is a card that is uncounterable.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest of the stuff is just nonsense.
And we're basically seeing if Chris can top deck an Abrupt Decay before Brian wins. Rather than trying to Fate Seal away the win, it looks like Brian is again trying to dig for Monastery Mentor.
Yeah, and in general, he's very light on cards in hand, so brainstorming is just a lot better than Fate Sealing. And also, you know, what if there's just 2 Abrupt Decays in a row on top of Chris's deck?
Well, if you want to find a Monastery Mentor, here's a card that can do it. Dig Through Time.
Yeah, that one is powerful. And I want to go back to the early turns in the game where Chris sacrificed the Hex Mage when Brian Celestial Purged it.
Yeah.
At the time, it looked like potentially Chris was walking Brian into that play because he just had Stage Depth set up. But now, Hexmage would have been an additional thing he was drawing to on these turns ever since that needle came down on Thespian stage.
Yeah.
And now it's just Abrupt Decay.
Yep. It was not free. Brainstorm from Brian. He's trying to find a mentor. I don't believe the Dig actually found one, and the Jace isn't either. But you can always have things, you know. You can find a Snapcaster Mage, snap a Dig. Either way, Brian's going to go ahead and Field of Ruin away the Dark Depths. So now that Chris has to run 2 top decks.
Yes. Looks like the hand does have some more depths in it. Snapcaster for Surgical Extraction here, if Brian has access to that on the Dark Depths, that would close the game. Chris would be
Chris is actually out of ways to win.
That meaningfully interact with your opponent at all.
There's no way to deal damage.
The Hex Mages are gone. That's his creature that can attack. And then the Dark Depths is the only way that you make Merit Age.
He's actually dead to a Snapcaster right now.
Yep.
Let's see if Brian finds one. Here's a Ponder. That would be a way to see a match end.
This Ponder looks like a shuffle. Yeah, there's a land and a mana leak in there. That stuff's no good.
A Surgical all your win cons. Just all of them. And, you know, even after this Ponder, he can use a Preordain to try to find it. Finds a Flooded Strand. There we go. Preordain. Snapcaster. Jace. Top.
Bottom.
Top. That's pretty good, too.
Oh,
he has another one, and Chris extends the hand. Brian already found it.
Yeah, he's out of stuff.
I appreciate that win, guys.